Welcome back, Chargers. Here we are again for another episode of the memorable games of 2021. For those who watch our first videos, first and second, thank you so much. Thank you for your support. And with your support, we are inspired to do more. Okay, and it's winter here in the UAE. That's why we're wearing this one. Um, and without further ado, of course, we go through this game against Adam Fawzy from Egypt. He's one of the newest grandmasters in Egypt. And in this game, we played the Kia. I was white in this game. And here we go. Let's start the ball rolling. I started with knight f3. He played knight f6. I have a g3. He played b5. Oh, this is not so common defense from the black side. This is the Spassky variation, right? He wants to counter my diagonal or my fianchetto on g2 with his own fianchetto on b7. Yes, okay. This is a fight of the h1 to a8 diagonal. And also he wants to control a bit of space here on b5 rather than b6. So I played bishop g2, bishop b7. Since he played this not so common move on b5, this the counter with a not so common knight a3 move. Okay, just a bit of history with this knight a3 move. Back in 2008, I had this similar game against Alexander Fomini from a Grandmaster Alexander Fomini from Russia. We played this game in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Actually, in that game, he was white. He was white. I was black. He played the move knight a3. Okay, I went b4. He played knight c4. I also played e6, and then he castled. I played d5, but in that game, he played instead of knight a5, he played knight ce5, and I had a comfortable position in the middle game. But what I was worried during that year, 13 years back, what I was worried was this move knight a5. Yes, and I didn't know how at that time. I didn't know how to react if uh, my opponent played knight a5. So let's have this game. When I played knight a3, my opponent played b4. I played knight c4. He played e6. The same thing. I castled. He played d5, and now I was like, my curiosity in this game was like, ooh, it turned me back. It turned me back 13 years ago. So I was like, okay, I was worried about this move. Why not try this one? This is the moment to try. This is the moment. Okay, let's drink to that moment. And then I play knight a5. Yes, this is a bit of a mystery for me. I want to solve this mystery. But me playing white, 13 years back, I was black. So he played bishop a6. Now, the main thing about knight a5 is that I want that bishop out of this diagonal. So this bishop on g2 is a bit venomous on that light square diagonal. Yes. Well, okay, and then a3. Well, the rook on a1 will be able to protect your knight on a5. Or else the opponent, let's say for example, the opponent plays c5. You have this a takes b4, right? And the rook now got protecting the knight on a5. Yes, with that one. Let's say c takes b4, and you can go for c4, yep, and continue with whatever you want to play. The rook is protecting, so the queen is attacking my knight, but thanks to the rook, opening the a file. Okay, so a3, he played takes. Since I want my rook to protect the knight on a5, I play d3. This is a human approach. Yeah. I want also to restrict this bishop from this a6 to f1 with that d3, right? It limits It limits the mobility of that bishop on a6. But at the same time, the problem is I really cannot open the a file yet. Maybe c3 was better, but I wasn't so sure. But what I didn't like about c3 is that the bishop is a bit active here. Let's say a takes b2, bishop takes b2, bishop d6, and maybe c4. I'm not sure. Maybe white is better here. Okay, he captured an a3. I went to d3. He had bishop b4. So change of plans. Change of plans. Move back to b3. Right. Sometimes we have to move back. Yeah. In life, we cannot just go forward. Sometimes we have to step backwards. Yeah. And try again. Yeah. So he castled the normal developing move. Pawn takes on a3. Then he played bishop c3. This is very annoying, right? This is very annoying. This bishop on c3 is controlling so much lines. Yes. He has this X. Yeah. X-Men. Before he was a man. X-Man. Yeah, there's an X here, yeah. The control of the bishop. Okay, rook b1, the open file. He went for queen d6, targeting my pawn on a3 at the same time, trying to push on e5, yeah. So I played bishop f4. Okay, if let's say opponent plays e5, I would be very happy if he plays e5 because I would just go back to d2. That bishop, he cannot push this one on d4, for example, yes, because I have knight takes d4. Look at that, the discovered attack on the rook on a8. Yep. So okay, you provoke the opponent to push that pawn on e5, and then exchange that annoying bishop on c3. Then I can control the light squares. Okay, so he went for queen takes a3. After bishop f4, he went for queen takes a3. Free pawn. You don't want to be down a pawn, so I have my pawn also on c7 to take. So take, just equal. He played knight c6, and okay, black has already completed his development with knight c6. I went back to f4 because again, this bishop on f4, we call this one, according to John Nunn, yes, according to John Nunn, this bishop on c7 is a loose piece. Yes, it's a loose piece. It's an unprotected piece. And then according to John, there's what we call LPDO, loose piece drop off. So you gotta find the friend. And I went back to bishop f4. It's protected by that pawn on g3. Okay, so the bishop is stable. It's a stable square because it's a protected piece now on f4. He went for knight b4. Now look at that space being controlled by black, right? He has this queen on a3 and knight on b4, bishop on c3. He is just squeezing up my position, yeah? And I was like, okay, I have to be be aware of what's happening here, and I have to squeeze out. I have to squeeze out, yeah? And this is also a bit scary here because this pawn is ready to roll on the a file. We call this one the outside pass pawn, right? We have the outside pass pawn here. This a pawn, it's ready. Let's say a move like bishop to b5 or bishop to b7 and then a5, a4, a2. So I have to be quick. I have to be like a brown fox here. You gotta be quick. It starts with that threat. Okay, you always create threats because with threats you gain some tempo. So there's a threat on the rook on f8. At the same time, you are pinning the queen on a3. So that allows the opponent to react. That saves time. Yes, so he reacted with rook fd8. I maintain the pin on c5. I have to create this pin because if let's say this bishop on a6 moves and he has a5, a4, that is a big headache. Okay, he went to queen a4, moving out of the pin. And now the unexpected move, rook a1. Okay, rook a1. Wow. Look at that bishop. The bishop is, remember, it's worth 3 points, right? And my rook is worth 5. This is an exchange sacrifice. But what happens if, let's say, the opponent captures the rook on a1? What happens is white has queen takes a1. And if let's say the queen takes on a1, we have rook takes a1. The knight on b4 is defending the bishop on a6. The rook on a1 is attacking a6, and the bishop on c5 is attacking the defender on b4. So in that sequence, black will lose a piece, right? It could be two minor pieces for the rook. That's why my opponent went back to c6. So that rook on a1 was not possible to be captured. And then when he played queen c6, another extra tempo with knight fd4, threatening the queen, saving time once again. Chess is all about time and space. Time means tempo. So there's a threat on the queen. The queen has to move. If the opponent, for example, captures the knight, I would capture with the bishop. He captures on c2. Oh, but I have bishop takes f6, takes on f6, and then rook c1. There's a pin on the queen. If the opponent protects it with knight, I have knight a1 or knight d4. Maybe knight a1 is much better. Putting more pressure on the pin piece. I have three pieces attacking the knight, and black only has two defenders. Right? So he's gonna lose his knight. So when I went for when I went for knight fd4, he went back to queen to c8, keeping an eye on that bishop, right? Because I can remove that defender over here, and I have rook takes. Okay, to show you an illustration, for example, if queen goes to c7, this is a free piece. Removing the defender, right? That's an important tactical theme. Removing the defender on b4, if bishop takes b4, and a free piece on a6. Okay, so queen c8 keeps an eye on that bishop on a6. Now bishop e7. Now look at the board carefully. We have two sides of the board. Okay, the king side and the queen side, right? Now, if you look at the queen side, those pieces, the major pieces, the two rooks, queen, and bishop, two bishops and knight for black. I have a queen, rook, and two knights also on the queen side. But if you look at the king side, the most important side of the board, because it's where the king is, there's only one minor piece protecting the king, the knight. Yes. So I played bishop e7 because that knight on f6 is the defender of the king. And I want to get an access to the king. Yes. He played rook d7 and now bishop takes f6. And now the king is open. Now I have an access to the king. Now I have to go through open lines, right? So the main lesson of this game also is all about open lines. So remember this. This is a game of open lines. So I started with rook a4. There's an open rank, the fourth rank, the fourth line. Okay. All I have to do later is move the knight back. And then if let's say this knight also on b4 moves, I can transfer or my rook to the king side. Yes. This rook a4 move is what we call a rook lift. Okay, he played rook to b8, e3, another open line, opening my line for the queen. The queen is now ready to go for battle. Yep. Queen can go h5 or he can go g4, right? Creating dangers on the king. Okay, he played rook c7, queen g4 check. He went for king h8. Again, create threats. Yes, create threats. That's extra. That's extra tempo. Queen d8 protecting f6. Knight e2. The defender of f6 is also that bishop, that annoying bishop, right? On c3, I was actually keeping an eye on that bishop. I have to get rid of this bishop because he's actually controlling my important squares, and I have to get out of this. Yes, he went for knight takes e2, free bishop on a6. All right, rook takes b3. Finally, finally, okay, this bishop on c3 takes, and then back to the open line. Okay, the connection of the rook and the queen. So that's coordination of two major pieces. Because you cannot win by one piece alone. You need help. In life, you also need help. So my opponent played queen to e7. And now another open line, the b line or the b file. Now I'm threatening rook to b8. I'm threatening the back rank b8 with a check, yeah, with rook b8 and queen g4, right? So the opponent has to be ready for that one. He played knight a3. In the game, I play this rook to b4. We have this what we call the Alec Hines gun, where your three major pieces are on the same line. Yeah, but maybe okay, the best move could have been okay after knight a3. It could have been rook to g4, right? Instead of rook b4. He has knight takes b1, but I have queen h6, and it's hard to stop queen g7 or queen f6 mate. Yes. But I like this coordination of three major pieces. I was like, I don't want my rook and b1 to be left alone. Okay, it's nice to be together, right? One family. So my opponent played d4. With that one, all right, go for b8. The back rank. This is the back rank. He went back to c8. Okay, for example, if let's say the king goes to g7, I have queen g4 check. And if king h6, I have rook g8. And I will be threatening mate on h4 or h3, right? If let's say f5, queen protects the h4 square, he cannot protect the other square on h3, right? He can only block it with queen, but queen takes h4 is already mate. The side file mate, a mate on the h file. So he went for rook c8. The problem with rook c8 is that this rook actually on c7 was an overworked piece because the rook not only protects the back rank, but it is also protecting his queen on e7. So with rook c8, I have bishop e4, threatening mate on h7. And here my opponent resigned. Yes. Because if let's say he plays f5 to protect the mate on h7, there's a free queen on e7. Yes. And if he captures, for example, my rook takes a7, another connection from the fourth rank to the seventh rank. Yes. Always together, together forever. After f takes e4, then queen takes f7, the mate on g7 or h7 is unstoppable. All right. So again, the main lesson of this game is working on open lines, operating on open lines. Yes. So look at this. Huh? It started with the move. Okay, the main plans of this game. It started with bishop takes f6, getting an access on the g file. Yes, to the king. Then rook a4, rook lift. Now the rook can shift to the king side. The next move e3, opening the line for the queen, open diagonal. And then the connection also of these two major pieces on this open rank. Yes. The next part was just taking, of course, taking all these defenders, one on a6, one on c3. We get another open b file. Yeah. And then they're together in one line here, the three major pieces. We have the back rank, okay, back rank. And we have the open diagonal, right? So all these pieces are working flawlessly, yes? The bishop, the queen, the two rooks. Again, when we are working together, we will be successful, yes? Because, again, you cannot win by one piece alone. In life, also, no man is an island. All right. I hope you like that lesson for today, and we will have more of this in the coming days. Thanks for watching. This is Coach Oliver. Stay safe, everyone. I'm signing off. See you. Bye bye.